Welcoming to the iHeartRadio Canada studios, Sid Sriram. Welcome, man. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
We are here to celebrate the brand new album, Sidharth. Well done and congratulations on an incredible record and your first Western pop album.
Yeah. I grew up listening to a ton of soul music, R&B, and then Indian classical music. These two forms kind of raised me. But this album feels like it's a coming together of all my influences, everything that kind of like really makes me who I am, with English language pop being at its core, kind of driving the whole thing.
So why now? Because you've been a recording artist, an award-winning recording artist at that for the last 10 years. So why now for the English album?
The time was just right. So like my professional music career started 10 years ago when I started singing for Indian films. I got my first break in Indian films with A.R. Rahman, who's a legendary composer.
Yeah.
But before that, I was making English language music. I was writing a lot. I was releasing covers. I was doing all these, and I studied at Berklee College of Music in Boston, and that's when I really started digging into my own original music. But the universe took me and sent me in another direction. And I just really followed that compass, and it's been beautiful. During pandemic, right around 2020, I went to lockdown in the Bay Area where I grew up in Fremont and started really digging into writing again. And I still wasn't always all the way there where I was like, this is what I wanted to share with the world. But serendipitously, I met a producer from Minneapolis through Instagram, very randomly. Made a trip out to Minneapolis just kind of on a whim, and that trip, that first 3 days that I spent there, turned into what this album is.
Who slid into whose DMs?
It was kind of like a mutual thing. He's like a very low-key, not really on the internet like that. It was just through like a mutual friend that we both respect and know. Somehow it happened, and it really reaffirmed my belief in like magic and the way that the universe works. And because it shouldn't have happened by any logical standard, it didn't make sense that this connection happened, but it did, and then it just turned into something that was really special.
This album's been described as Minneapolis winter meets California suburbs meets South Indian vibrance, which I love. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Yeah, it feels like a new experience. I mean, as we were working on it, the way I described the process of making the album, it felt like a magical fever dream. It was like 7 to 8 months of us just on this wave of making this music. And that those kind of pushes of momentum, those serendipitous moments, they don't happen all the time. And sometimes they happen and you don't catch them. But this was an instance where it was happening. I was aware. I was like, okay, let's really embrace this and seize it. But yeah, that sound, it kind of is this coming together of these very different cultural spaces, conceptual spaces, sonic spaces. But the way we made it was so organic and sincere and natural. We didn't have to like overthink anything. So very naturally, it was like this world was formed where these different spaces coexist with one another.
I want to mention one of the songs that you're here today to perform for us, Dear Sahana. Epic.
Thank you, man. That's my favorite. That's my favorite one off the album.
Okay, good. I'm glad I picked that one out as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one where, a couple of things. One, it's probably the best representation of my Indian classical roots and this more kind of like folk soul sound kind of coming together. I grew up, like I said, in the Bay Area. I started learning Carnatic music, that's South Indian classical music, when I was 3 from my mother. She's my guru. And she started a school there in 92. We moved there in 90 from India, or 91 rather. But her students are also on like the last course of that. There's like 25 of them that join along. So in many ways, it feels like a direct representation of who I am.
Is she your harshest critic then?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, like, my whole family unit is like very integral to what I do, and very encouraging, obviously, very proud, but also they're the people that really hold it down. Like, there's still a long way to go. You know what I mean? So in that way, harshest critic, but also really celebrates the wins as well.
Yeah, biggest fan.
For sure.
So tell me this, is it more nerve-wracking for a kid from Fremont, California to release a Bollywood record, or for an Indian kid to attempt a Western pop album?
I can't tell. You know what? I think my journey into the world of Indian cinema music was somewhat gradual. I mean, it was a big break, but then for it to grow to the status where I'm at over there, It happened over the last 10 years, especially 2016 and post that really kind of took off. So I was given the luxury of being able to take it all in, you know, and it never felt like at one point where I was thrust into the deep end. And then with this record, with Sidharth, I really, like I said, made it when I felt like I was ready to and the time was right. So it never felt like there was any pressure to perform or like you have to make a song that's a mega hit or something. It was just some homies clicked up in a room making music together, you know what I mean? So it never felt like this big professional push to be this or that. It was literally like water, you know? So I know I gave you a long-winded answer to a question that should have just been yes or no or whatever, but
it's a complex one.
Yeah, for sure. I think they both come with their sources of tension or pressure or stress, but then they're both very spiritually fulfilling. You know, so I would say I don't have a direct answer for you.
Well, you obviously have many differing tastes, and I think you strike me as someone who doesn't like to be put in a single box.
100%. Yeah, I think that is probably the most accurate way to put it. My whole life has been this kind of reconciling of different identities or influences, not just musically, but just as a human being. I mean, the title of the album, Sidharth, that's the name that my parents gave me when I was born. Born in Chennai, and then we moved to the States. So once I started going to school, I shortened it to Sid, just because people weren't really able to pronounce it properly, and it was my way of kind of assimilating into Western society. But yeah, the idea of being in a box has always really irked me. I tried to do it for like my formative years because it's just we're not always given the luxury of thinking outside of what the norm is. But as I was really kind of coming into my own, once I was in college and once music started taking a really strong position in my life, I was dead set on not being put in one bracket or box or whatnot.
For sure.
Yeah.
I recently saw that you covered an epic track that was featured in episode 3 of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
That was wild. Like, was that just a coincidence?
Very much so, man. I mean, it really kind of plays into this whole serendipity thing I've been talking about. So the reason, Ryan Olsen, he's the producer from Minneapolis that I went out to work with. The reason I went out there, well, it wasn't the reason, but what he's told me is come out here for a weekend. If you leave with nothing else, you'll leave with this cover of a great Linda Ronstadt song, which I'd never heard before.
Long time.
Yeah, long time. He introduced me to it. So I went out there to record that, and then that turned into a whole, everything else. So, and then we released it back in November, and The Last of Us episode came out, like a month ago now?
Yeah.
And it just was magical to see it all flow because nothing was obviously planned.
Yeah.
The timing was just really beautiful. And that episode was gorgeous.
Oh, it was amazing.
And the original song is amazing. I mean, it was just a lot of beautiful things coming together at the right time.
Are you a fan of the show?
Yeah. I haven't been as in it since I've been traveling, but it's what I'm going to binge. I'm going to wait for the whole...
Well, you're here now. It was filmed here.
Oh, really?
Well, it was filmed in Alberta.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, it gives me another reason to lock in with it.
There you go, yeah. I think
sure.
it's a sign, yeah. It's
Yeah,
weird. Well, a massive congratulations on the release of, don't let me butcher it, Sidharth?
No, you got it right.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay,
you got it right.
Good.
The way they used to say it when I was at Sidharth, there was a bunch of different ways, but you got it perfect.
Do your parents call you that when you've been in trouble? Because it's your full name?
Now they can't really chastise me anymore, but yeah, when I was younger, for sure. There's a specific tone that maybe the world will hear at some point.
Well, congratulations on the release. Stream it now. Sidharth from Sid Sriram, and thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you so much, man. Pleasure.